Good evening. Here's what's coming up on NTV tonight.
Tonight, losses, inconveniences and locked up union officials as airport workers go on strike.
The government should not look at us as like they are...
We had to use all the necessary efforts which we had to make sure that we cleared the criminals off this facility.
Court suspends strike.
Also tonight, the latest jab in the Ruto-Raila war, a stinging allegation against the deputy president.
You are the thief who is trying to show us that, oh, the other thief running away.
Plus, another full day of grilling for Treasury CS Henry Rotich at the DCI headquarters.
And
nilivompeleka hakumpima akamwandikia tu dawa, lakini nilivorudi naye kwa nyumba zile dawa zilikuwa zinafanya kazi.
The grim reality of the high cost of healthcare.
NTV Tonight with Dennis Okari and Burrows.
Many thanks for joining us in this news broadcast, and you can watch us live at www.ntv.co.ke/live, also on our social media pages at NTV Kenya. You don't want to miss that. And our sign language presenter tonight is David Gondola. We'll start off with Kenya Airways, which is counting losses running into millions of shillings owing to a strike by members of the Kenya Airports Workers Union who paralyzed operations at the country's main airport as the union's officials cool their heels in police cells.
Victor Kiprop has been following the day-long go-slow at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport that has left many travelers stranded and struck a key nerve of the country's economy.
It all began at around 3 a.m. Wednesday morning when Kenya airport workers downed their tools to protest the proposed takeover of the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport JKIA by struggling national carrier Kenya Airways. What followed would be pain, frustrations and the collective agony of thousands of passengers freezing in the morning cold or baking in the scorching afternoon sun, waiting to be cleared to fly in, out or within the country.
We are traveling to Liberia to bury my late grandmother, and actually this delay has affected us. And we do understand circumstances do occur, but what we do demand at some point is some human dignity and respect.
Since today morning I am standing here at 5 o'clock. I have been not answered by any of the authorities that when is my flight, how much delay it is there.
The airport workers proceeded on strike just a week after failing to get orders to stop the handover of operations of JKIA to KQ. In response, the government arrested and charged 3 of the union's officials and 3 Kenya Airways staff members, led by Secretary General Mos Ndiema, with incitement over the strike, which it says is illegal and amounts to economic sabotage.
What they were talking about was a futuristic, a proposed transaction, which had not happened, which may not even happen, who knows. And so to sit and say negotiate, what are you negotiating about? That is total nonsense. And we shall not allow misguided people mislead the people who want to work. There are a lot of people out there looking for jobs.
On Wednesday evening, the Employment and Labor Relations Court temporarily suspended the strike by the aviation workers until the case is heard on Thursday morning. The JKIA law courts also remanded the union officials.
As it is, because of the accused persons, union officials being in court, unfortunately the strike continues. As a lawyer, there's nothing much I can do. The strike has actually not been called off.
The strike led to a stop in operations at the Eldoret International Airport. It also stopped travel operations at the Kisumu International Airport. At the Moi International Airport in Mombasa, there was a disruption of local flights, with international flights carrying on smoothly. But in the meantime, Kenya Airways, Kenya Airports and the country continues to reel from the effects of the disruption that is expected to affect significant economic sectors including tourism, horticulture, among others. As at 1 p.m. today, at least 4 international flights and 1 local flight had departed, while 4 others to Blantyre, Douala, Bangui, Zanzibar and Seychelles had already been cancelled at a cost that will be borne by Kenya Airways.
At least 5.8 million travelers use the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport every year, making it one of Africa's largest airports. And experts now say that the longer this strike takes, the costlier it is for the country. Victor Kiprop, NTV Business at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport.
NTV's Mark Masai has also been following the story, and he is at the JKIA right now. He joins us live with a status update. Mark, have operations at the airport resumed?
It's quite a different picture here at the Terminal 1A departures section, and if I could just move back and probably help you appreciate the activity that is going on as people try to catch up with the delayed flight from earlier, because as you can expect from an international airport such as this, the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, they have now a backlog to catch up with in terms of international departures and as well as arrivals, even local flights that were rescheduled earlier in the day. But an official statement from the Kenya Airways, which was posted about 2 hours ago, and I spoke to one of the communications officers from there, say that at least by their count, 93% of their passenger loads have been successfully departed or are scheduled to depart this evening. And I can confirm right behind us and all around, actually, there's a lot of activity with people coming in and leaving just to catch their flight to their various destinations. So yes, we can confirm that operations are back to normal, and this is the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport that you would see if you came at around this time. And in terms of the status of the workers, in terms of the strike, on their part, they say that this strike is still on. I spoke to the advocate who's representing the Kenya Aviation Workers Union, Peter Wanyama, and he says that 10 of his clients have been locked up. The male clients have been locked up at the industrial area prison, as well as the ladies who are in Langata Women's Prison, and they have been locked up and charged with disobedience of a High Court order, as well as an incitement to violence charge, and they are meant to be in custody till Friday. Now, the lawyer says that is working against the government's desire to make things work, because they can't quite call off the strike if they are in remand, and they say that Peter Wanyama, the lawyer, says he will be in court tomorrow when the dispute hearing will be on to represent their views, and says that the officials are willing, led by the Secretary General Mos Ndiema, are willing to call off this strike, but they can't do it behind bars. So hopefully we'll see something come out of this tomorrow from the court session. But yes, a lot of activity, and I'll take off from here and let you continue with your bulletin.
Thank you, Mark Masai, with that status update. It was a different picture in the morning compared to what is just explained to us.
Right now, yeah.
Business as usual now, and focus now will move from JKIA now to the courts tomorrow, as we just focus now on what is going to happen next with that strike. Meanwhile, the National Assembly had to interrupt normal afternoon business to delve into aviation workers' strike.
While some MPs condemned the strike, terming it a threat to national security, others backed the workers, saying the national carrier Kenya Airways was in the red financially and should not be allowed to take over the airport's management.
The workers of an airport like JKIA and the control towers are not like the teachers' strike. They control the lives of people, of planes. How many planes, over planes, people were diverted? Let me finish. People were diverted to Kilimanjaro. What about if that plane didn't have enough fuel? What? Yes.
The people who are striking are Kenyans, and without Kenyans we have no business to sit here. I challenge to Honorable Junet, how can you say this is not business of parliament? This is the business of security, this is the business of international relations, this is the business of transport. You want to paralyze Kenya?
Strike is normal, Mr. Speaker. It's not something, it's allowed. That is why how people like Honorable Melemba came to the house, Mr. Speaker. And that is how they earn their living, Mr. Speaker, because of organizing the strikes, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, this is a normal matter. We should not take it out of proportion, Mr. Speaker.
In my view, all avenues had not been exhausted. We should have allowed, the union should have allowed engagement. Parliament is on this matter through PIC, through the Transport Committee, the people's representatives.
It is really embarrassing I have traveled to more than 50 countries before I came into this parliament. I don't know how many I've done now. And Mr. Speaker, never, ever in my life have I seen what I saw today. It is embarrassing for a country. And we must, as a parliament, fix it after all the storm is settled. Thank you.
The MPs had more to say, and earlier in the day, the National Assembly Committee on Transport blamed the strike on anxiety among workers over the planned takeover of JKIA by Kenya Airways. The committee says the deal is shrouded in secrecy.
Why is KQ, which is a loss-making institution, taking over a profit-making institution like KA? This PIP has been shrouded in kind of secrecy. And I will say this, and as a committee we are saying this, that it is because the ministry itself and also the management of KAA have refused to engage their primary customers, who are the workers of that institution. And in that wage bill, we have already written a letter. They will submit to this committee their structure and payments for every employee of KQ will be submitted to Parliament by next week. No marriage shall happen between KQ and KA until Parliament speaks on it.
Now, plans for a proposed takeover of the country's largest airport began taking shape almost a year ago when a cabinet meeting resolved to improve the ranking of Kenya as a civil aviation hub in Africa.
But even before the plans move from paper to implementation of the proposed public-private initiated investment, the voices of rejection are getting louder, with some of the stakeholders expressing their fears over an uncertain future.
Kenya Airways was once fully owned by the government but has since been privatized. The proposal to hand the airline the authority to run and manage affairs at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport began over a year ago after a cabinet meeting that looked at the current status of Kenya's civil aviation industry in Africa. During a special cabinet meeting held on the 29th of May 2018, the CSs of Transport and Treasury proposed a joint memorandum of development of Kenya's civil aviation sector, seeking policy approval on actions Kenya could take to restore competitiveness. In October, Kenya Airways wrote to the Kenya Airports Authority, acknowledging the announcement by the ministries for the two entities to enter into an arrangement that will result in KQ operating, monitoring, developing, constructing, upgrading, modernizing, financing and managing JKIA based on public-private proposals. Concerns over the ability of the carrier to manage airport affairs began to surface and ended up at the National Assembly, where cabinet secretaries were summoned to explain the rationale for the proposal.
Who authored the whole concept?
Parliament put the brakes on the proposal following concerns from workers at the Aviation Authority, who felt that allowing KQ to take over affairs at JKIA would be detrimental to the survival of not only their jobs but the airport itself.
So when we structure a mechanism to ensure that we have a win-win situation to salvage a very important strategic institution like Kenya Airways, our legislature come in between and make the whole situation toxic and tell us, you want to sell this institution, you want to do this.
Nothing has happened. It's a proposal. We are still engaging in the parties concerned in those discussions.
While the battle for JKIA has reached the corridors of the legislature, legislators from both sides of the divide have delved into the matter.
Ukikuja kwa mambo ya Kenya Airways, we know more and we shall talk in the parliament. Hata mkizungumza hiyo bill ikatae kusikia kwa parliament, tutazungumza nje. We know what happened.
Sisi tunajua ya kwamba wakati maneno ya JKIA ililipuka, sasa mnataka kufunika na maneno ya adabu.
The government has stated that the plans were just plans at the moment and should not cause panic.
It would be responsible for us as a government to allow Kenya Airways to go down, because with it, if it goes down, it will go down with our tourism, it will go down with our horticulture sector, and it will go down with our revenues from Kenya Airports Authority, because 70% of the revenue of Kenya Airports Authority comes from Kenya Airways.
In 2018, KQ announced a 4 billion shilling loss, with the airline also stating that it would resume aviation fuel hedging in the second half of 2019 after price volatility drove up its costs. The carrier, which over the years has struggled to stay in the skies, has a varied ownership, with the national government keeping 48% share ownership. Lenders, including major banks in the country, own 38%. Dutch carrier KLM 7.8%, with minority shares at 2.7%, and employees owning just above 2% shares jointly. Those in government believe that growth and profitability can be achieved by allowing KQ to manage JKIA. Leila Mohammed, NTV.
From matters JKIA onto matters corruption. Treasury CS Henry Rotich has for the second day been answering questions around the Aurora and Kimwarer Dams scandal at the DCI.
Seth Olale is at the DCI headquarters at the moment and he joins us live. Seth, what more do we know?
What we know is that the CS for Treasury, Henry Rotich, just left the DCI headquarters 9:15 p.m. He was accompanied by his lawyer, Katwa Kigen, who spoke to the media, and he clarified the reason why today's exercise went for over 10 hours. Let's just listen in to Katwa Kigen.
I would like to confirm that we are done with the interviews. We have failed to the investigators the information they needed, the clarifications they needed. We appreciate that it has taken rather long. The reason why it has taken a bit long is because we are dealing with international contracts whose terms in a way takes time to understand. And it took a while for us to get to an understanding with the investigators on how those international contracts work, the related documents, and the relationship between the two contracts that are in issue, being a commercial contract and a financial facility contract. And with the clarifications we've done, we trust that now the issues are clear.
Katwa Kigen, lawyer for CS Treasury, Henry Rotich, and as far as he's concerned, his client has done, or rather has completed the grilling, and according to his client also, that is the CS Rotich, that they have provided all the necessary information they had, and so they will continue with their business unless they're required to give further information here at the DCI headquarters. Remember that CS for Treasury Henry Rotich becomes the first high-ranking cabinet secretary to be grilled here at the CS for over 20 hours. This is the second consecutive day that he appeared here for grilling over the dam scandal. But this is just what we can update at this particular moment. We've been here whole day, and right now it's done. The CS Henry Rotich just left the DCI headquarters few minutes to 9 p.m. and this is the latest update. Back to you, Dennis Okari.
All right, thank you, Seth Olale, for that update. Seth remains on that story. Dennis, isn't it historical, though? I've not heard of another CS being grilled for quite so long.
Not a sitting cabinet secretary. And interestingly, yesterday he arrived at 5:40 a.m. at the DCI headquarters to be grilled. And by 6:30 p.m. he had only answered half of the questions. And by the request of his lawyer, Katwa Kigen, they had to move it now to today, where the grilling continued. And as Seth Olale was reporting, they just finished 8:45. So it was really, really a long one and quite historical, I think. But let's move on now to matters devolution, where opposition leader Raila Odinga has supported President Uhuru Kenyatta's stance on the war against corruption, calling on politicians not to politicize it.
In yet another veiled attack at Deputy President William Ruto, Raila accused him of meddling in the dams scandal probe while calling on his lieutenants to play their tribal card.
NTV's political affairs reporter Kennedy Muridi reports on this ensuing war of words between the two were not new in the political war.
The debate on corruption and ways of combating it took center stage for the second day running at the devolution conference, with leaders who spoke, hammering the point of accountability from every sector in the war against the vice. Raila Odinga, riding on his newfound relationship with President Uhuru Kenyatta, buttressed his resolve to fight corruption, arguing it was time those mentioned adversely took personal responsibility, especially government officials. Citing examples from countries across the world that have strengthened the war against graft by jailing officials implicated in the vice, Raila said it was time Kenya took the cue and ruthlessly dealt with the vice.
If you are talking about the theft of the dams, and figures are there, don't come and tell us that it was not 20 billion, it was only 7. Let the investigating authorities complete the investigations. Who are you to tell us? How did you know? You are the thief who is trying to show us that, oh, the other thief running away.
Raila argues that the war on graft is gathering momentum but is being slowed down by politicians or state officers who are retreating to tribal cocoons to scuttle it.
You hear about these mega corruptions, and they're not fictions. They are facts, they're allegations. But then, when this happens, the matter is highly politicized. Instead of the politicians leaving the institutions charged with the responsibility to deal with them, politicians take it upon themselves to rush to funeral gatherings of our communities being targeted.
Kapseret MP Oscar Sudi, a close ally of the Deputy President, has previously argued that the Kalenjin community and its leaders have been the target of the war on corruption, while the real culprits roam the country without care.
Wakati William Ruto alikuwa na support Raila Odinga, hakukuwa mwizi. Wakati alikuja akasupport Uhuru Kenyatta, hakukuwa mwizi. Saa hii vile anataka imefika wakati yake, mnasema ni mwizi. Tutakutana na nyinyi na Mungu yuko, na tutapambana na nyinyi matajiri ya Wakenya hii. Yenye mnafikiria nyinyi ndio kila kitu. Na tutasema, si ati hatujui vitu yenye mmeiba nyinyi watu.
Niliona mwingine akisema sijui nimeiba mali ya nani. Mimi namwambia, wewe tembea hapa Karura Forest hapa. Ofisi ziko hapo. Kwenda useme Uhuru kile ameiba. Shida iko wapi jameni? What is the problem? Lakini hii mambo ya kutishatisha watu ati kwa sababu umetaja kitu kwa mazishi, huyo mtu ambaye amekufa hata kusaidia.
Raila says it is time heads rolled regardless of one's standing in government or society.
If the Koreans can imprison a sitting president, why should Kenyans not do anything?
If we could deal with the man-eaters of the Savo, I believe we can also deal with the dam-eaters of Kenya and build our dams.
Talk on combating corruption may have dominated the 6th Devolution Conference in Kirinyaga, with senior politicians calling on the relevant agencies to swing into action and tame this vice. But what will be different this time round from the previous attempts? Kennedy Muredi, NTV in Kirinyaga County.
We wait to see what the Deputy President's response will be to that.
Everyone is expecting he's going to say something, so let's just wait and see what is going to happen tomorrow at the Devolution Conference in Kirinyaga, where Kennedy Muredi will be giving us more reports from that location.
Yes, and as always, NTV remains on top of that story. Picture this, everything is going well for you until you fall sick. Then the endless trips to hospital begin. Within no time, your insurance and savings are depleted.
This is a reality for a number of Kenyans whose lives drastically change as a result of prohibitive health expenditures. NTV's Sharon Baranga with the story.
The past 5 years for Diana Wavua Mwalili have been dark. She has been crying, holding on to the hope that she will one day hear her daughter, Angel Rebecca Onyango, call her or run up and down in their neighborhood, Kayole Estate. Life for Wavua changed drastically when her daughter fell ill when she was 7 months old.
Nikampeleka kwa daktari. Vile nilivyompeleka hakumpima, akamwandikia tu dawa. Lakini nilivorudi naye kwa nyumba zile dawa zilikuwa zinafanya kazi.
That marked Wavua's journey of desperation as she tried to find ways of ensuring her daughter gets proper medication.
Alipoenda kwa scan, alisemekana ubongo wake umeshikana na umeharibu hiyo uti wake wa mgongo. Na wakaniambia maisha yake yote atakuwa anapatwa na conversion.
The condition in medical terms is known as bilateral frontal hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy or HIE. It is a brain injury caused by oxygen deprivation to the brain, also commonly known as intrapartum asphyxia.
Ilikuja ikamsumbua kwa muda ile ukulia sana usiku na mchana. ikakuja baada ya miezi 6 ikaisha, lakini akabakia akiwa mlemavu.
In the process, her husband abandoned her after claiming that he had already used up more than 500,000 shillings. Wavua's story is similar to that of many Kenyans who struggle on a daily basis to raise funds for treatment.
According to Ministry of Health statistics published in 2016, catastrophic health expenditure drives an estimated 1 million Kenyans into poverty every year.
She used to operate a food eatery in Kayole that used to fetch her around 4,000 shillings a day.
Wakati sasa hiyo harakati ya kulala na mtoto hospitali ikawa nawacha wafanyikazi, wakawa wananiambia kazi haikuwa nzuri, hawajaweza kufanya kazi, chakula inaregeshwa, inaharibika, tunamwaga. Mpaka ikafikia nikafunga ile hoteli. Nikarudi nikaenda nikaweka kioski kidogo, lakini hali ya mtoto ikaanza kuwa mbaya zaidi. Ikabidi pia nifunge.
Wavua and Angel are currently housed by 2 young people aged 20 and 18 who came to their rescue after she could no longer afford rent. It is due to this that she could also not afford to pay for her National Hospital Insurance Fund since March last year. Dr. Vincent Okungu, a health economist, paints a grim picture of how grim the situation is.
The majority of the poor have little income to spare for non-food expenditure. In the event of illness, which is usually unplanned, they don't have any reserves. And even for richer households where we have long-term illness, they have the potential to also face catastrophic health spending and eventually fall into what we call the medical poverty trap.
Currently, 25% of the population in the country has health insurance cover. These are largely in the formal sector. The country is already piloting universal health coverage in Kisumu, Machakos, Nyeri and Isiolo counties. Under the program, some 3.2 million people will benefit from free healthcare services provided by the government. It is expected that once a national rollout is done, then it will alleviate the suffering Kenyans like Wavua are going through. Sharon Baranga, NTV.
We've been running a series on the handshake 1 year on, and after the break, Silas Apollo will be telling us if the opposition is dead. We'll be right back.
A shave others will notice. Gillette's affordable 3-bladed razor.
you for keeping it NTV tonight. Unfortunately, there's nothing much to smile about with this next one. A 16-year-old girl in Mombasa County is hopeful she'll be accepted back to her community in Vihiga after safe delivery of her baby, who is said to be the product of incest.
The minor was chased from home in August 2018 after revelations that she was impregnated by her stepfather. The primary school student and her family are planning to take the newborn to a children's home.
16-year-old Violet, not her real name, is a mother. Hers was a safe delivery at the Coast General Hospital in Mombasa. Safe, but not joyful. The minor is alleged to have been molested by her stepfather, hence the pregnancy. She was chased from home in late 2018, banished from her community as per Luya traditions where incest is a taboo. To the Class 6 pupil, her stepfather would offer protection and provision, but to her dismay, she was defiled.
Huyo stepfather alikuwa ananipeleka kulala huko kwa nyumba ya nyanyangu nikimlindia nyanyangu nyumba. Nilipofika usiku akanikujia na kisu akasema tulale na yeye ama aniue, na nikijaribu kumwambia mtu yeyote ataniua.
Violet was taken to Luanda police station together with the friend she was staying with. She was expelled from home by her grandmother, the mother to her stepfather. The minor's family took up the matter and sent her to Mombasa. Thoughts of abortion had run through her mind. Only after persuasion did she carry the pregnancy to term.
Astahili kulelewa kwa familia, manake ni mtoto wa familia. Sasa mtoto akiwa kama huyo akiwa kwa familia atahitaji mama yake, atamhitaji mama ama nyanya. Hiyo ni chera tayari, haistahili.
The minor's family is now in the process of sending the baby to a children's home with the expectation of an adoption. Mel Miendo, NTV.
Is the opposition in Kenya dead? That is the question that has been on the minds of many Kenyans since the much celebrated handshake between President Uhuru Kenyatta and ODM leader Raila Odinga in March last year.
The two protagonists buried their hatchet in what many touted as a big win for the country after the heated campaigns and political contests in the 2017 presidential elections.
But as Silas Apollo reports, the handshake may have come with what some now contend is the death of the once vibrant opposition, which kept the government on its toes and fought against excesses on the citizens.
For most Kenyans, the March 9th handshake between President Uhuru Kenyatta and ODM leader Raila Odinga was a prayer answered. Partly because the tension witnessed after the 2017 presidential elections had thrown the country into a spin. Businesses were reporting losses due to the tension that had clouded the country, even as investors expressed reservations about pumping money into the economy. The handshake, coming in the wake of a mock swearing-in of Odinga as the people's president, was therefore a relief to many. But with it also came what political commentators and critics termed as the death of the opposition. Many questioned how the opposition leaders, now working with the government, would still keep the Jubilee administration in check, criticism that Odinga dismissed.
I myself have not joined the government. I don't have any position in the government. There's nothing that stops me from criticizing the government. This whole hula-baloo about opposition is dead in Kenya is a media creation. The opposition exists where it's supposed to exist, and they're doing what they're supposed to be doing.
But even with the assurance of Odinga, many still remain skeptical, arguing that the opposition was in effect dead.
Ikiwa tunataka tudumisha demokrasia, sisi wote tukitoroka kwa kazi yetu na tuelekee huko, sasa nani atafanya kazi ya oversight?
The criticism continued to pile more after Odinga was appointed the African Union Special Envoy for Infrastructure, an appointment which was soon followed by that of Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka as South Sudan Peace Envoy.
So hata kama ni mambo ya party, Raila ameuza Kenya.
Matters would later be made worse by events that followed in Parliament, like a failure by MPs to marshal support against the increase of the VAT on fuel. Apart from Odinga and Musyoka, the opposition comprised of Moses Wetangula of Ford Kenya and Musalia Mudavadi of the Amani National Congress. But Domingo Magara of the Center for Multi-Party Democracy says there's nothing to worry about.
Opposition does not mean constant warring factions in government or opposition. Look at opposition as a constructive critique for purpose of development of this nation. I don't think opposition is dead, because even within Jubilee you can see there are critics within themselves. I think that shows maturity in our democratic process, and we encourage our members to engage.
Odinga, a former Prime Minister in the 2008 Grand Coalition government, has been the cornerstone of the opposition, and his vibrancy and acumen has provided its inspiration. The Orange Party leader has been credited with blowing the lid on Eurobond, the NYS scandal, land-grabbing sagas, and other mega corruption scandals in the Jubilee administration. His bromance with Kenyatta has raised concern among his critics and supporters about whether his zeal to speak up against injustices will continue. ODM is Kenya's largest second party with 76 MPs after the ruling Jubilee Party, which has 171 lawmakers. Wiper comes third with 23 MPs, while Wetangula's Ford Kenya has 13 MPs. Mudavadi's ANC has 14 MPs.
So, is the opposition really dead? The answer to that question depends on who you ask. On one hand are the critics who argue that the handshake between President Kenyatta and Raila Odinga neutralized the influence of the opposition. On the other hand are the optimists who argue that there's really nothing to worry about. Silas Apollo, NTV.
After this break, Julian Amboko tells us the latest of the standoff between MPs and the central bank as regards the withdrawal of sums exceeding 1 million over the counter.
Glad you could join us on The Only Name in Business. Welcome, I am Julian Amboko. The Central Bank of Kenya has been given 7 days to formally table before the National Assembly regulations it issued regarding disclosures attached to the over-the-counter withdrawals exceeding 1 million shillings. According to the National Assembly Committee on Delegated Legislation, the Central Bank flouted the law in failing to present the regulations before the August House prior to implementation. The National Assembly Committee for Finance and Planning has also castigated the Central Bank for enforcing regulations it says do not have the full force of the law.
The bank governor cannot also not hide under international conventions and other regulations of international anti-money laundering laws. Because if Kenya has signed those conventions, then those conventions are required to be domesticated under our regulations or under an act of parliament.
The nature of the guidelines issued by Central Bank is subsidiary legislation, to which Parliament has a duty to scrutinize under Statutory Instrument Act. And therefore, as it is now, even if the regulations which Central Bank governor has already implemented in the banks, if someone is taken to court, the court cannot use those regulations to actually take action against any bank manager who has refused to follow the regulations.
And staying with matters banking, but from the earnings side, Kenya Commercial Bank's operating income flatlined at 72 billion shillings in the 12 months that ended December 2018, driven in part by declines in foreign exchange trading income and income from other fees and commissions. Let's take a deeper look at the numbers. The group, however, posted a 22% growth in net profit to stand at 24 billion shillings, aided by a 50% slash in provision for bad loans to 2.9 billion shillings. In the period under review, the group continued to benefit from relatively strong growth in interest income from government securities, which grew by 5% to 13 billion shillings, compared to a slower 3.7% growth in interest from loans and advances. KCB Group has attributed the slow growth in interest from loans to monetary policy environment in 2018, which saw 2 slashes of the benchmark rate. The group's subsidiaries in South Sudan, Burundi, Rwanda, Uganda and Tanzania posted a 64% gain in pre-tax profit to stand at 2.5 billion shillings. The group's board has proposed a 17% increase in the dividend payout for 2018 at 3 shillings and 50 cents a share. The KCB share closed the day at 43 shillings and 5 cents, which is about 2 percentage points higher than it did yesterday. Elsewhere, the Ministry of Tourism has challenged the private sector to be part of the country's tourism industry in a move aimed at helping Kenya showcase its tourism products across the world. This comes at a time when the Kenya Tourism Board, in collaborations with 42 local hoteliers and travel agencies that are part of the delegation attending the ITV Expo in Berlin, argue that Kenya has the potential of recording high targets in terms of tourism arrivals in the country if all stakeholders meet the expanding demand for tourism and hospitality services. NTV's Kevin Mutai is attending the tourism trade fair in Berlin and has filed that story.
The need for global advertisement campaigns and charter airline promotions is among the key vehicles that Kenya is focusing on at the International Tourism Bourse in Berlin, Germany, with the aim of getting her fair share of the global tourism market. The conference that has brought together thousands of exhibitors from all over the world has provided Kenya's tourism players with a platform to show the world that Kenya is about more than just wildlife and beach destinations.
We are very happy with the market. And the Kenya Tourism Board has improved into marketing strategy, particularly on the digital platform. We are investing heavily on the digital platform, and that is where the clientele needs to ease, and that's why we should be there.
Balala says Kenya is on track to surpass the 2 million tourist arrivals posted in 2018, which in turn will represent a rise in terms of revenue collection. This has been supported by a number of measures rolled out by the ministry to help attract new visitors, including support for flight operators through the Charter Incentives Program.
We have jumped from 4 charters to 15 charters. In fact, we invested as a government of 200 million Kenya shillings. The return of that is about 3.7 billion Kenya shillings benefit to the economy.
The Trade Expo is also an opportunity for tourism players in Kenya to make new deals.
We've come to showcase, to tell the world what we are capable of offering as a country and as a property. For Travelers Beach, German market and German segment is I think the greatest that is producing for us. If you look at the international tourists.
The Ministry of Tourism says that it is now focusing on improving Kenya's infrastructure, product diversification and marketing strategies, among other things, so as to improve Kenya's tourism sector to meet up with that of the global arena. Kevin Mutai, NTV, from Berlin, Germany.
And from Berlin, we get back to Nairobi. And manufacturers have joined the fight against pollution by signing a global initiative charter, pledging to recycle and effectively dispose of plastic waste in the country. The Kenya Association of Manufacturers has signed on to the Ocean Plastics Charter, promising to collect, process and recycle plastic bottles that they package their products in. Coca-Cola and Bidco are some of the 13 manufacturing firms that joined this wave and have also promised to support research and innovation in packaging using environmentally friendly resources.
Essentially, it's to get our commitment to find solutions, and for the Kenya Association of Manufacturers essentially to launch or do a pre-launch of the Kenya Plastics Action Policy, which we are developing holistically and will be also by partnering with government to ensure that it captures all the aspects of the circular economy.
So any other plastic that was excluded from that, we now have a regulation on how to manage it. We have developed it together with industry, and we've gone around in Kenya and just completed a stakeholder participation. We now have a regulation.
And that's it for NTV Business Tonight. Do enjoy the rest of your viewing.
Thank you for staying with NTV Tonight. On to court matters. The court has summoned Kenya Bureau of Standards Managing Director Bernard Onguyo to explain why he defied a directive on testing fertilizer alleged to contain mercury. Milimani Principal Magistrate Kennedy Cheruiyot said there was evidence that the KEBS MD was aware of the order from him to be part of the team that would test the fertilizer in Mombasa but failed to show up. He is expected in court on the 12th of March. Former KEBS MD James Ongwae and other government officials are accused of unlawfully releasing some 5 tons of substandard fertilizer which contained mercury to OCPK Limited.
And from the courts, 17 suspects arrested in connection with last Sunday's murder of 5 night guards in Kilingili, Vihiga County will be detained for 14 more days to allow police time to complete investigations into the killings. The suspects, including 2 secondary school students, were arrested in a police operation on Tuesday morning, and police also recovered crude weapons. The killings happened some 50 meters from Kilingili police station.
The name of the former KEBS MD is Charles Ongwai.
Now moving on, the head of the Catholic Church in Kenya, John Cardinal Njue, today led hundreds of Catholic faithful gathered at the Holy Family Basilica to mark Ash Wednesday and the commencement of Lent period of 40 days.
Cardinal Njue has called upon Kenyans to maintain unity and cohesion in line with this year's Lent theme, uniting healing and renewal of the nation.
Cardinal Njue went ahead to emphasize the importance of this day that marks the beginning of 40 days of fasting by penance and repentance among Christians.
Among Catholic faithful who attended the Mass was Director of Criminal Investigations George Kinoti. Millions of Catholic faithful across the world observe Lent, which is commemorated by the celebration of Easter to mark the end of fasting.
Point of view, let us not lose sight also of our environment, and that we pray really, as you have heard us repeat many times, asking the Lord to touch the minds and the hearts of all our leaders, so that somewhere along the line there may be that, creation of environment where we can truly live as brothers and sisters, irrespective of the places we come from.
We'll take another short break, and Warada will be here with the sports news.
To play on NTV tonight, I am Warothe Kiru. Preparations for the 2019 Safari Rally, which is a candidate event for the 2020 World Rally Championships, have been boosted with the WRC project team enlisting foreign technical experts to provide world-class guidance. The experts, members of the WRC project team and representatives from the government, spent the better part of today at the Kasarani Stadium, which is also the venue for the start and super special stage. Sean Kadovilis with the details.
The journey to return the iconic Safari Rally to the World Rally Championship calendar has gone up a gear.
This event is full of professionals. This event is full of enthusiasts. This event has so much passion around it.
In a bid to ensure the preparations for the FIA WRC Safari Rally candidate event set for July meet international standards, the WRC Safari Rally project has hired 2 technical experts from the FIA and the commercial rights holder of the World Rally Championship.
16 years since the World Rally Championship has been at the Safari Rally, and technology has moved on hugely since then. The suspension that's in the new cars is incredible. They hardly feel the bumps. The tyre technology, punctures are something that are actually quite rare.
Finn Jarmo Lehtinen, a veteran navigator with 15 WRC victories as a co-driver, and Briton Ian Campbell, the 2018 Wales Rally GB Clerk of the Course and Managing Director of the British Rally Championship, are in the country to review the organisational framework and input their expertise to bring Kenyan officials up to speed with all aspects regarding the running of a modern-day WRC.
By the end of the week, we will have a concrete plan on how we can rectify whatever they think doesn't meet the World Rally Championship standards.
Kenya lost her WRC status in 2002. Standing on the 2013 Jubilee Government Campaign Manifesto promise, the WRC Safari Rally project has for the past 6 years sought to get the Safari Rally back at the apex of rallying. Given the Safari Rally's nostalgic appeal, Kenya is in with a chance, but with countries like Japan and Chile also pushing for a slot in the coveted calendar, Kenya has to really put its house in order to get back in the WRC calendar. So the 2 consultants are in the country to basically advise the WRC project on the way forward in regards to the Safari Rally, and that's ahead of a visit by the FIA, and that inspection is to see how organised the 2019 Safari Rally is. Sean Carter-Villas, NTV at the Kasarani Sports Complex.
On to hockey and